Welcome back. Now the details in full. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi reviewed on Saturday a number of training and qualification axes for the components of the educational process, most notably supporting and improving potentials. This came during the President's meeting with the Minister of Education and Technical Education, Mohammed Abdel Latif, and Director of the Egyptian Military Academy, Lieutenant General Ashraf Salem Zahir. Meeting tackled the ongoing efforts to improve mechanisms to prepare and nominate cadres working in Egyptian schools. In this regard, President el-Sisi stressed the state gives priority to developing all axes of the education system in a way that ensures achieving the highest level of objectivity. Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli held an inspection tour to follow up on the Ras Al Hikma project developments and the deliveries of the Alamein Towers and urban complex in Western Daba. Prime Minister also inspected the ready-for-delivery units in the Alatin neighborhood in New Alamein, paving the way for their deliveries to their owners. During the inspection tour, Madbouli gave his directives to follow up on the compensation for the residents of Ras Al Hikma area and close this file. Madbouli also directed the abundance by the timeline of deliveries of the New Alamein Towers, of which reservation has started a while back. And also Madbouli listened to a detailed explanation by the Minister of Housing and Jarir, Sharif al-Shirbini, on the latest development of work in the units to be delivered. Minister of Housing pointed that a part of the project is located at the coastal area and another in the southern area, explaining that the project was being established on an area of 400 fadans, which is composed of 6 sections and 65 housing complexes, 207 housing buildings, and a total number of 10,597 housing units. To regional news, Egyptian, Qatari and U.S. mediators are to meet with Israeli negotiators in the Italian capital Sunday in the latest push for a Gaza truce. We have the details. An Egyptian high-level source announced that a four-sided meeting will be held in the Italian capital Rome on Sunday between officials from Egypt, United States, Qatar and Israeli intelligence chief in the latest push for a Gaza truce. This comes in continuation of efforts to reach a ceasefire deal in the Gaza Strip. The high-level Egyptian source also said Egypt stressed on the necessity of reaching a deal that leads to immediate ceasefire in Gaza. The proposed truce deal would be linked to the release of hostages held by Hamas in exchange for Palestinian prisoners held in Israel. U.S. News separately reported the CIA Director Bill Burns is expected to hold talks on the issue in Rome on Sunday with Israeli, Qatari and Egyptian officials. Egyptian media said Egypt insists on an immediate ceasefire as part of the agreement, which should also ensure the entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza and safeguard the freedom of movement of civilians in the Palestinian territory. It added Cairo would also like to see a complete Israeli withdrawal from the Rafah crossing connecting Gaza to Egypt. Egypt, along with Qatar and the U.S., has been involved in months of mediation efforts aimed at ending the Israel-Hamas war raging in the Gaza Strip for more than 9 months. Recent mediation efforts have focused on a framework which U.S. President Joe Biden presented in late May, billing it an Israeli proposal. Meanwhile, the Israeli military told Palestinians to temporarily evacuate southern neighborhoods of Gaza's Khan Yunis region so it could forcefully operate there, telling them to relocate to another humanitarian area in Al-Mawasi. We have the details. Israel's military ordered the evacuation Saturday of a crowded part of Gaza designated as a humanitarian zone, saying it's planning an operation against Hamas fighters in Khan Yunis, including parts of Mawasi makeshift tent camp where thousands are seeking refuge. It's the second evacuation issued in a week in an area designated for Palestinians fleeing other parts of Gaza. Many Palestinians have been uprooted multiple times in search of safety during Israel's punishing air and ground offensive. After the evacuation order, multiple Israeli airstrikes hit around Khan Yunis, killing at least 70 people. The area is part of a 60-square-kilometer humanitarian zone to which Israel has been telling Palestinians to flee to throughout the war. United Nations and humanitarian groups say much of the area is blanketed with tent camps that lack sanitation and medical facilities and have limited access to aid. About 1.8 million Palestinians are sheltering there. Further north, airstrikes killed at least 5 people overnight in central Gaza. UN and humanitarian officials accuse Israel of using disproportionate force in the war, which it denies. The war in Gaza has killed more than 39,100 Palestinians. The UN estimated in February that some 17,000 children in the territory are now unaccompanied, and the number is likely to have grown since.